My dearest and beloved Emily, first, February 13th of the year 2022. My dearest Emily, I have recently finished reading a short, fascinating science fiction book, which I would like to share with you right here, my beloved choco doll of a friend. I know I have written previously a book review in a letter format, so I have decided to do it again because not only is it so delightful and pleasant to do, but I feel like I can express my most personal, intimate, and immaculate thoughts about this book that I finished specifically at 3:52 p.m. with 38 seconds. At around roughly 3:44 p.m. with 15 seconds on the day February 11th, which is 3 days later, 3 days after this letter is being written. Let us not forget that these lines are being written in the year 2022. I must confess that I am impressed at how quickly and how fast I managed to end this book. I borrowed it from my friend's bookstore, and I intend to return it now. I give him a copy of my review of this book. I will do that. I started it roughly in the middle weeks of January of this year, and since I have decided to continue exercising so as to control my weight and to have some balance in my life, yes, I took this book with me when I was working out, and there were some exercises, instances, and routines in which I could read and do cardio at the same time. It was a mentally and physically refreshing experience, reading and exercising at the same time. Fun extra fact, my friend, whose name right now I will refrain from mentioning, sits beside me while I am writing these lines to you. That's fun, don't you think? Here I am writing these lines where I basically admit to committing some mischief, but I do intend to return the book, so my mischief is not as condemnable. As for the book, the name is Blueprint, written by German author Charlotte Kerner. That's Charlotte Kerner, Kerner, Kerner. She's a German author, a well-known one for her science fiction books based on what the reviews on the cover say. She is German, therefore I am totally interested in reading this book in the original language. The cover has the photo of who seems to be the clone daughter of the book's protagonist. This book tells the story of a famous and well-known piano player who, wanting to perpetuate her DNA as well as her musical talent, she decides to clone herself. And the book proceeds to tell the life story of the clone daughter and her life, especially the life struggles as a person looking for her own identity and some individuality in the process. Looking back, I think I could phrase this particular idea in the following way. The protagonist decides to have herself cloned. That's right. That is a past participle right there. Since during the first chapters it talks about the struggles in the protagonist's mind, as well as the rationale and justification for wanting to clone herself, I must say that the reasons she provides for wanting to clone herself and perpetuate her music talent were so intriguing and anti-social, edging, and teen-like even. I deduce that younger Josh, that means me, would have probably liked the protagonist's reasons. I remember thinking that she viewed herself as unlovable and incapable to find someone to mate with and conceive a child. I also remember thinking younger me would like this due to the views I used to hold back then, fairly anti-family and anti-paternity. Something along these lines I remember thinking. I personally hope I'm making sense. I liked it a lot because there is plenty of moral and social debate that this issue causes cloning, given the fact that they are basically a copy of their clone mothers or clone fathers who want them to be specifically in that way. Say, for example, becoming a talented musician or brilliant physician. They, on the other hand, the clone offspring, become exhausted at the expectations that the parents have from them. It's like, this is what my mom wants from me. This is the sole reason she brought me to life, despite my never asking for it on the first place. And I've trained all my short life to become a physician, physicist, or musician, and I've become quite good at it. But what about what I want? What about my interests, my desires, my wishes? I don't know if I want to be that my mom and dad wants me to be. Damn, now I hate my mom and dad for making me go through all this hellish trip called life. I think that this perfectly summarizes what this book entails. I may have oversimplified it, however I do beg you, and I exhort you, and I do encourage you to read this book. Not only is it short and quick to read, but it is also a memorable trip that leaves an impact even after you finish it. Additionally, just like the never-ending story by Michael Ende, which in German it's called Die unendliche Geschichte, this is a great piece of literature written by an author whose native language is not English. Too many people associate this language with some of the greatest pieces of literature ever written, with Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter as some great fantasy books. I do believe that authors like this, and like these in other languages, ought to be given a chance. And yes, one can get to know these wondrous authors by reading translated versions before reading them in their original languages, when the reader does not speak them at all. It is for this reason that I suggest that you consider taking a look at this author and this book. Let us mention Arthur Clarke, Robert Heinlein, and Isaac Asimov as primordial examples of science fiction authors. From these, I've only read, and with a lot of pleasure, Asimov. What is their native language? English. Well, it is great that people read this language. I'm not really trash talking people who only read in English, as there might be cases of English who do not read anything at all. I do say that it is actually refreshing and actually nutritional, mentally and intellectually, to read others and other books from other places and languages. On the long run, it will be beneficial for your mind and your body, as well as your intelligence and your capacity. At some point of the book, there was this debate whether the clone people or children were the same as having... I remember. At some point of the book, there was this debate about whether... No, debo reportar esa cosa y la voy a cortar. At some point of the book, there was this debate whether the clone people or children were the same as having ordinary children, and whether or not they could be the same as ordinary families, and things like that. This caused me to think. And honestly, I do not apologize for thinking like this, that just like religious people are so eager to express their anti-abortion views, I am pretty sure that they will be the first ones that will immediately express opinions that basically say that clones are abominations of nature, aberrations of science, an experiment that should never have been carried out, that it is anti-natural, and this goes against what God told us about having regular families as well as living ordinarily and harmoniously. Given their bad rap and bad track as a bunch of bigoted baboons that will pee and poo at anything that is different, exempli gratia, a Christian family whose son or daughter declares that he or she is now an atheist and then proceeds to be disowned by the family and even kicked out of the house, you know what I'm talking about. I'm completely sure that they would behave like a bunch of befuddled brutes who would not accept a human clone or a clone adult who reads the gospel and now he or she has decided that he or she is converting to Christianity. Let us imagine that bizarre scenario. I'm absolutely willing to bet 2 liters of my own blood that pretty much nobody at the church would accept this adult clone who wants to search for Christ and be saved by him. All of this, so to speak, of course. This book additionally made me find several similarities and parallelisms with these particular characters of Star Wars. Yes, I'm naturally talking about the clones in the Clone Wars. And yes, they are millions of brothers, all of them identical, bred for war, conditioned from birth to be unconditionally obedient and loyal to a government and a chancellor who did not even bother to learn their names, or in this case, nicknames that they would assign each other. Brave and loyal, capable to fight viciously, and of course, to the last man. Even with all that genetical engineering and mental conditioning, many clones develop personalities as well as some sense of identity and individuality, despite the fact that pretty much all of them share the same face and the same DNA. The following quote perfectly summarizes this internal struggle to both survive and find an identity within a family where it should be, and it would be difficult due to everyone's identical faces. Goes like this. I know for a fact, sir, that one day this war will be over. And then what? We're soldiers. What is supposed to happen to us afterwards? That's the quote. I may not have quoted the whole thing correctly, but I am 100% sure that the message and the essence of it is properly caught and can be understood without any problems whatsoever. Through the entire series, several moments can be found that are conversation starters and debate initiators regarding morality, individuality, and searching for one's identity. In a family and army in which pretty much the path was written for everyone before they were even brought into existence. Remember my example of the clone daughter whose mother wanted her to be a musician? Well, here it is perfectly applicable, with the only difference being that the millions and millions and millions of clones being brought into existence have their fates and destinies written and predetermined in the most default kind of way. They were all going to become soldiers, and the kind who would carry out orders with zero hesitation and without questioning. If that's what it's like for them, who are all soldiers, I just can't imagine what it's like for those whose parents want them to become doctors or, in the case of this book, a talented musician. It is all incredible and it's all kind of unfathomable for me, who was fortunate enough to have a blessing of a mother who was supportive and understanding in pretty much all aspects of my life. I hope you can live with yourself, Dogma. This is a quote spoken by a clone to another hard-headed clone soldier that obeys orders without questioning, even if that includes executing his own brothers under his Jedi general's orders. The quote continues and it goes like this. Wait! This is wrong, and we all know it. The general is making a mistake, and he needs to be called on it. No clone should have to go out this way. We are loyal soldiers. We are loyal soldiers. We follow orders. But we are not a bunch of unthinking droids. We are men. We must be trusted to make the right decision, especially when the orders we are given are wrong. That's the end of the quote. Then they fired their weapons, but realizing that their clone brother's words make a lot of sense, all the firing squad chooses not to kill the originally sentenced to death clone soldiers. They show compassion, empathy, and some individuality and independent thinking that got them to refrain from killing their own clone brothers. A similar debate goes through this entire book, but this is a more like an internal struggle that resonates more with the reader, as it is more intimate and a kind of face-to-face talk. At some point, the clone daughter, Satie, ends up hating her mother due to all the absence and insistence in all other aspects of the mom's lives. By the way, the name of the mother is Iris Celine. Iris Celine. I'm pronouncing it the English way. Now allow me to spell it. Iris Sellinn. And yes, funny enough, she decided to name her clone daughter with her own name backwards. The way the mother, Iris, from day one states that her daughter, Satie, sole reason for existing, is to honor her and become a talented pianist so that her mom can continue living immortally and rather... Voy a cambiar esa parte. Debo cambiar esa parte y dice, the way the mother, Iris, from day number one, states that the daughter's sole reason for existing is to honor her and become a talented pianist so that her mom can continue living immortally, was rather unnerving and disturbing. This was quite tantamount to Mother Gothel in Disney's Tangled when she says to Rapunzel, "I love you most," but then proceeds to kill Rapunzel's hair instead of her forehead. The name of the daughter, by the way, is Satie. It's like Iris does not really love Satie, not as a human or a daughter, but for what she represents, her ticket to immortality and the perpetuation of her name as a composer. As an extra comment, yeah, she views her clone daughter as a view to continue her legacy. That last comment was not written in this letter. I bet that should Satie decide to become anything else other than a musician, then she would be immediately disowned and neglected by the person who brought her into existence. And here I can think even more of this old phrase and question that goes more or less like this. I'm your mother, or I'm your father, therefore you owe me your existence. Well, I have news for you, Mom and Dad. I never even asked to be born in the first place. Your argument is totally stupid and ridiculous, and I'm not going to give you money in order to contribute for your retirement funds. This is a hypothetical dialogue that I wrote in order to illustrate my own views and what I've learned from this book. I also wrote it as a mean to illustrate a too frequent situation in too many families, not just Asian ones. I'm sure that it can resonate with other people to whom you can show this. It is about some individuality and wish to be your own person, not what someone else has decided for you. I'm sure things could be said about this book by me and my hand and mouth. However, I'm going to end it right here and there. Let my words be the final grade awarded to this book. I hope my words give you both the gist of the book and it encourages you to read it. As you might be able to see, spoilers were avoided so you can discover it on your own. Lots of love and hugs, and always yours, I, Josh. As an extra fact, here are some words spoken by my friend in order to describe Mr. Isaac Asimov, who was actually mentioned and described during this particular letter and review. Isaac Asimov describe mundos no existentes que logra que veamos a través de su prosa y poder adentrarnos en esos mundos. That was Spanish. Now allow me to translate those words into English. Goes like this. Isaac Asimov describes non-existent worlds, and he gets us to see these worlds through his prose, and we can get inside and we can experience these worlds like we are living there. That's what my friend said. Thank you, Emily. Thank you for listening. And now, the following words were not included in this particular letter. The following words I'm going to mention are comments that I could have made about that particular hypothetical dialogue about a man or a woman complaining to their sons that they owe them for their existence, and the sons and daughters reply that they didn't even ask to be born. As I was telling you a few moments ago, I think that this resonates with everyone because too many parents act as entitled jerks who want their kids to do their will, but when they show the slightest bit of individuality, it's game over for them, and they proceed to get angry and scream at them. Therefore, individuality wins, and screw to some point what our parents say, especially when they use the classic argument to get their way that we owe them for our existence, which is totally ludicrous, ridiculous, and manipulative. Me, for example, I love my mom and I loved my dad with all my heart. I say that last sentence in past because dad passed away in the year 2002. These lines were written in the year 2022, in February, while this audio is being recorded in September 2022. Going back to my mom and my dad, I do love them, I do adore my mom, and I would sacrifice one organ of my body in order to donate it to my mom. However, existence sucks, life sucks. Existing is depressing, and living and existing is exhausting, and I think I would have loved more if I didn't come to life. In the sense that, not that I would have wanted to be aborted, even if I wouldn't have known. The thing is that, if I hadn't been born, that would have saved me some pain. Regardless, this is all I wanted to say, and I thank you very much for listening and reading these things. Thank you, Emily. I hope you are having an amazing day. Know that I love you, and know that I appreciate you, and know that I feel privileged and blessed for your friendship. Wherever you are, Emily, I wish you the best. Thank you. And for anyone listening and watching this, thanks for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I hope that this particular mini review encourages you to read this book by this German author. Thank you so much. Thank you.